items. You see item H there. We've had a staff recommendation to remove item H, Great Circle, and replace that with the contract that you have at your chairs. The Specialized Education of Missouri, Inc., doing business as High Road School of Boone County, tuition contract for a specific unidentified student. This is coming from a staff recommendation and request, and so I would look for approval of the consent agenda items with that contract swapped out for item H.
So moved.
Thank you, Ken.
Second.
Thank you, Lori. Any discussion, questions?
This is on the consent agenda, right?
Yes.
Including the financials.
Yes. Good. All right, all in favor of the consent agenda being approved, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
I'm gonna abstain.
Okay. We got that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Consent agenda is approved.
Ken, do you want to abstain from that?
And Ken as well? Okay, very good. Okay.
We'll back up a bit.
We still, yeah,
You made the
okay.
motion.
Oh, can we, yeah.
Yeah, he made the motion. We
You
need
made
to
the
back up.
motion, we need to back up.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yep. So,
I'll make the motion.
thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Lorelei. You good? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, say nay. Very good. Consent agenda is
With an
approved.
abstention.
With one abstention.
With one abstention.
Two.
With
Two
two abstentions, yes.
Two.
Yep.
Yes.
Lindsay and Ken.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, got it all?
Yes, sir.
All right. Very good. Okay, moving on. Difference makers, item 7, Dr. Linscomb.
Absolutely. We recognize that each, Lori, you can start working your way if you'd like, fulfilling our vision to become a premier school district in the state. We have difference makers along the way. So with our pillars of learning, partnership, and stewardship under our learning pillar tonight, Lori Rust is going to introduce somebody, and so the floor is yours.
All right, well, I'm kind of short this way, but I'm gonna turn this way to Cheyenne Ramsey. She is here tonight as a difference maker. She recently competed as a national finalist in LA at the National Braille Competition. And so while she was out there representing, she was only one of 2 Missouri students that were represented. And so when she was out there, she discovered that maybe she might like acting a little bit while she was in LA. She came back this summer and was in a performing arts camp here in town. Was not a very good experience. Got homesick a lot, guys. She is a delightful little girl. She goes to Cedar Hill, and prior to that was at East School for a couple of years, and so we are very pleased to have her here tonight. But we also, what we're really proud of is the fact that sometimes students become teachers, and she is one of those that likes to help others and to challenge classmates and to encourage them to learn more about Braille. And so while she's working to improve her reading and writing in Braille, she's also encouraging her fellow classmates to improve their reading skills. So we are really pleased tonight to have her here as one of our difference makers. Okay. Oh, good. Whoa. Cute. Good job. Good job. Great job.
Great job.
Awesome.
So next in our partnership pillar, Gary Verslois is going to introduce and recognize some of our Skills USA students. So we had a little reception earlier, and we're somewhere recognized over at the Miller Center, and what a great event that was. And so I want to welcome all those folks affiliated with that. And Gary, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Okay, I have Sharon Longin come up, Director of Nichols Career Center. It's not every day that you get to recognize national champions, but Nichols Career Center did that twice. And the first 2 walked in are national champions. The Skills USA it's a competition where the skills that these students learn in the classroom, they're put into practice in a timed competition. And I'm going to let Sharon share some of the numbers as far as how many students were there, what the competition was like. Just give everybody about a 60 or 90 second overview of what that was.
Okay. Well, to say we're proud just is such an understatement as to what these students have accomplished along with their instructors, and such a example of Stronger Together, because it takes not just the commitment of the students, but the commitment of the teachers and our business partner, our industry leaders, our state skills director, our local skills director. It's such a partnership. So that being said, we had 9 students, 9 that qualified for national competition in June in Louisville, Kentucky. That in and of itself is the biggest number of students that Nichols Career Center has ever sent. And in comparison, I don't know if it's the most in the whole state, but it certainly is a lot of kids. Michaela Busher is a student from Fatima High School. She placed first in graphic communications screen printing. So Michaela, congratulations.
We were just going to formally start going through it.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, so we had 9 students attend nationals, and we have some certificates for the students that are here. As Sharon mentioned, Michaela Busher, first in graphic communications and screen printing. Michaela goes to Fatima High School. Instructors are Dawn Sees and Cheryl Wolf. Other national champion, Nick Ruff, took first in carpentry. Nick attends Jefferson City High School. Instructors Brian Wolf and Mike Schaefer. Jacob Scribner, 5th in culinary arts. Jacob attends Jefferson City High School. Instructor Chef Amber Moore. Caleb Toonstra and Quinn Kippett, 8th in mechatronics. They attend Jefferson City High School. Instructor Matt Yeager. Logan Childs, 9th in plumbing. Logan attends Blair Oaks High School. Instructor Craig Stroke. Matthew Beck and Christian Chavez, 17th in additive manufacturing. They attend Jefferson City High School. Instructor Matt Yeager. And I don't think Colton is here. Colton Conway got 25th in electronics. He attends New Bloomfield High School. Matt Yeager, instructor. I'm not going to take too much of your time, but I may have shared this in a board meeting before, actually, but I had a friend, Danny Davidson, who there's now a memorial scholarship that he was given in a former district. And he always said that you just be passionate about something and be really, really good at a skill or a trade, and you'll be just fine in life. And that's what you guys are exemplifying. Congratulations, and thank you for representing us.
The picture, everybody?
Can we get you guys in the U? But you're gonna face me this time.
Good job, guys.
Great job.
One, two, three.
Okay, stay there. 'Cause you don't want to stay there. We got it?
Thank you, guys. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
People, human beings.
Folks.
Maintenance and custodial, the Bob Weber's introducing. Bob and Frick here?
Yep, Bob and Frank.
Okay.
All right.
As they file out, thank you guys for joining us. Our third pillar of stewardship we'd like to recognize is some of our difference makers. of all the custodial and maintenance work that our folks do to not only just get school ready, but to be proactive and work through potential issues and so forth. So I'll turn it over to Frank and Bob. Bob and Frank and Bob. If you guys
I'll let Frank go first, he's tall.
okay.
All right, got a few representatives of our nearly 80 custodial staff. Some of them are actually out working tonight. Obviously, we have summer school that goes on through June, so they have about 6 weeks to get these buildings put back in shape, floors waxed, dusted, whatever else might be, ceiling tiles replaced. These guys work hard, tireless hours, and schools look great. I've been around to just about every one of them, and they all look pretty much the same, ready to go, ready to educate our kids. And I want to say thank you guys very much for the effort that you and the rest of your team members put into these buildings to make them look the way they are. It's just amazing to me. I'll let Bob finish it off.
Well, I'll echo that. And at our custodial barbecue, I told you how I feel about you being proud to have been your leader. So keep up the good job, and the buildings look excellent. And let's get off and have a good school year. Have a certificate to present to you. First is Connie Clun, who works here at our board office. Elaine Wood is our supervisor at Simonson. Dennis Hagenoff is our supervisor at Thomas Jefferson. Mike Watson is at West Elementary. Ryan Borman is our district custodial supervisor of all the custodians.
Okay, so
Thank you.
picture. We'll get pictures. Thank you guys.
Short people in the front.
Frank and
Sorry, Don.
Frank and Larry back.
Okay, guys. 2, 3. Look good.
There we go. Thank you guys. Thank you very much. We have many more differences, but that's all we're doing.
That's
Formally
tonight.
recognized.
That's what we're recognizing tonight.
That's all we're formally recognizing.
Okay.
Jason will lead the tax rate.
Yep, okay, very good. So item 8, tax rate hearing for 2018. Mr. Hoffman?
All right, every August, we have a tax rate hearing. It is, so the process is, it's kind of interesting. So we have to have our budget done by June 30th, and over 50% of our revenue comes from local property taxes. Well, so we have to have this done by June 30th. Well, we don't get our notice of assessed valuation until July, and then we don't set our tax rate until August. So these are the two main components that determine 50% of our revenue. So it's kind of backwards, but we work with it. So we get notice, we're in 2 counties. So we get notice from the county clerks of what our assessed valuations are. We then submit that data to the state. There are forms, tax rate forms that we submit to the state auditor's office. They then review them, make sure the numbers look, there's no way for them to really prove how accurate they are, but just make sure everything looks in order. And then they send those back, and then once that's there, you actually have a copy of the forms in your packet in pages 19 of 26. Be happy to go through the forms if you'd like, but they're just forms. They're calculations done for us. So we have 2 different levies. We have an operating levy that we operate the whole school district with, and then we have a debt service levy, and that is solely for the repayment of general obligation, principal, interest, and then the fees associated with that debt. So, as you know, last year, the April election, Proposition J was passed. And so the elections were different. They were worded differently. This election was just the authorization to issue $130 million of bonds. Within it, we told them what we thought the tax rate would do, but it wasn't authorization of a tax rate, it was authorization of issuance of bonds. And then part of the reason that we get the debt rating that we get is that we really have the authorization, and as you'll see as I go through that, to levy quite a bit more than that. But the way we have it structured, we know that we can do it with the levy that we're presenting. So we told the voters it would increase their debt service levy by 65 cents, and that went into effect last year. And then Prop C is a completely different. Our operating levy was, that is actually authorization to increase our levy. It's the different questions. One was to issue bonds, this one is to increase our levy. So it's levy specific. So we received 60% approval. The election was two-part. 25 cents was to operate the second high school, and 20 cents was for instructional needs pre-K through 12. So in 2016, our operating tax rate was $3.44. We actually had the authorization this year to increase that by 45 cents because of the vote. But knowing that we're not operating a second high school this year, we didn't need the 25 cents. So we increased in 2017 from $3.44 to $3.64. Now this year, we're still not operating a second high school in 2018. So if we didn't have to, we wouldn't raise our tax rate this year either. But because of a quirk in the law, this is a non-reassessment year. Every odd numbered years reassessment. So this is 2018 tax year. So this is non-reassessment. That means the assessor doesn't go and reevaluate the value of the property on the books currently. The only changes are new construction and changes in personal property. So the law says that if you do a voluntary rollback in a non-reassessment year, so 2018, last year we voluntarily rolled back that 25 cents. If this law wasn't in place, we would voluntarily roll back 25 cents again this year. But the law says that if you do a voluntary rollback in a non-reassessment year, 2018, you have to do that same voluntary rollback in the reassessment year. So we're locked into whatever we do this year for 2 years. Well, we need that levy in 2019. So we've talked about this a lot. We talked about it when we did the budget, that this was our plan all along, that we're going to increase the operating levy 15 cents this year. It'll stay the same in 2019, and then in 2020, we'll take the final 10 cents of the full operating levy. So this is probably a bit confusing. We had Prop J and Prop C for our elections, but statewide in 1982 there was a Proposition C, and it was a 1% sales tax statewide. Half of it was to go as new money to education, and the other half was to go to reduce property taxes. So the calculation, well, since 1982, there are 522 school districts in the state. All but 37 districts have voted away that half. So they have a waiver of Prop C. So we're one of only 37 districts in the state that has not voted that rollback away. So basically, we take half of our Proposition C revenue that we get statewide, figure how many cents of levy that would generate, how much, and we reduce our tax rate by that amount. It's the simple calculation. So as sales taxes increase, property taxes should decrease, and vice versa. It's a balance between how your assessed valuation and sales tax revenues grow. So a little history of what's happened with our Proposition C revenue. So our total Prop C revenue back in 2008 was $6.5 million. Our assessed valuation was $1,165,000. So we did a tax rate reduction, Prop C reduction of about 29 cents. And then when the financial crisis happened, you see our assessed valuation still was continuing to grow and statewide sales tax was declining. So we had the authority to tax 4 more cents because our Prop C reduction went down, which means your authority to tax went up. And as you see later, we didn't do that at that time. And so sales tax collections have rebounded and actually are doing very well. Our assessed valuation is continuing to grow. So we've gone from 29 cents down to 24, and it's grown in the last couple years, it's been about 32 or 33 cents is what we roll back our tax rate because of this Prop C. So it's a little bit of complexity that's in our calculation. So our operating levy, our voter-approved ceiling doesn't change from last year. It did change last year. If you looked at last year's, this went up by the 45 cents. The Prop C rollback is a little bit different, changed by 0.16 pennies. And then we're still going to do a voluntary rollback of 17.58 cents. So we're increasing our operating levy from 364 to 379, as we talked about through the campaign and following through with that. Then the debt service levy, which is on page 23 of the packet, is a different form. You basically figure how much money do we need for principal and interest payments. There it allows for 1 year of reserves, cost of collections. So how much money is required for those things, divide by your assessed valuation. So we would need $19.2 million divided by our assessed valuation. We would need $1.47 levy according to the calculation. Well, we've worked with Stifel, our bond advisors, and we know that we can repay that debt over the 20-year life with a 90.28 cents. And so we do a voluntary rollback of 0.5735. And when I told you about the voluntary rollback on the operating side, that once you do it in a non-reassessment year, you have to do it in reassessment, that's only on the operating levy. It doesn't apply to the debt service piece. So our total, here's a history of our total tax rate. You see we did some voluntary rollbacks back in the years when our Prop C reduced, and we were getting ARA money, and at the time it didn't make sense for us to be taxing people more when a financial crisis was happening and we were getting federal stimulus money. So we did some voluntary rollbacks at that time, but you can see our tax rate stayed very stable for a number of years. Last year it went up because of the 20 cents for operating and 65 cents for debt, and now this year the 15 cents for operating. So looking for approval of the tax rate documents that are in your packet, and an operating levy of $3.79 and a debt service levy of 0.9028 for a total of $4.69.28. So we don't do approval yet. This is the hearing.
Yes.
So, sorry, I said I'd need approval.
That's right. That was going to be my question.
That's later. So now this is a hearing, so we can take questions from the audience or.
All right.
It's very exciting stuff.
I
Choked up. Just choked up.
I tend to do that.
Nerds, isn't it, Rich?
Okay.
And I'd be happy to answer any questions now or later.
Any
during
questions
the
for Jason?
agenda item.
Any questions from anyone in attendance tonight in regards to what Jason's presented and proposed?
I have a question on
Yes, sir.
Do I need to come up?
If you would, so we can make sure everybody hears you.
This might not pertain to exactly what you were saying, but I do have a question. My taxes went up this year. I'm Justin Besson. I live at 9210 Kings Chapel Road in Centertown, Missouri, if you guys need to know. My taxes went up, and this is just me, $800 a year. I send my kid to a parochial school. I don't even send my kids to a public school. And I'm fine with that rate increase. But I'm hearing rumors, though, on this high school that it's one and done so quickly that we're taking the same money if they did it on a normal time frame. They could build the sports complex and the high school on a normal time frame job, say 2 years, 2.5 years, whatever. They're actually building just the high school with that same amount of money just because they're pushing it so quick. And me as a taxpayer, I don't really know, and this is rumor, I don't know, I haven't seen any numbers and I don't know that this is accurate, but me as a taxpayer, I'm highly confused how we can throw our money around like this, because obviously we're asking for more money now. How are we going to build a sports complex for this new school? Another tax rate, another increase, it's got to be paid for somehow. Us throwing money around like this, I mean, I can't do that in my bank account, and I know on the taxpayer's back, I just don't really feel that this is.
I understand, or I guess I think that's probably, I don't think it's directly related to the tax rate.
And it might not be,
but-
and I apologize for that,
appreciate
but-
you, sometimes you don't know without asking, but I think I share the same guidance with you is a couple of other gentlemen that came up earlier this evening, I think, and Dr. Lipscomb would be happy to visit with you. We can speak with you, Mr. Hoffman, and.
So can I ask
him
him, on these tax increases, are these going towards any of the new school on top of what we did last year, or what exactly
So
are we trying to gain here?
the 65 cents that we raised for the debt service, that's paying the debt. So we issued the debt, and that's to go and repay the debt. So the $130 million that's going for the construction is in place and not changing. The increase that's coming is to staff the new high school, to operate extra electricity, extra custodial, extra teaching staff.
Okay. And that was, and was that understood when we were building a new high school, we have to staff this thing? We have to have teachers, we have to
That's always
have
been factored
janitors.
into the
Well, that was
Okay.
the second,
Yeah.
that was the second part of the, that's why it was split into two.
But it's not a full, I mean, we currently have two schools. We have Simonson.
Yep.
And we have JC High School.
Yep.
Those two, but it is an additional 27 teachers that would determine as far as with the hiring process. So it's not like we got to hire 80 teachers.
Yep.
We do have teachers at Simonson and the high school that will be filling both. So there will be an increase, but not as much as just starting from scratch on a whole new school.
Well, I was just, and like I said, I didn't know if I was on the right page there, but I did want to ask and just kind of get some insight on where we're at. So you guys are listening to this now, and then when will you guys vote on this? Is this another thing that we can come in and?
Can I just interject though?
Yeah.
Because this operating levy is what passed in April. But we are gradually, what did it pass, 25 cents?
45 cents.
45 cents. So we didn't need the whole 45 cents right off the bat. So we didn't increase 45 cents. So we increased, what, 20 cents last year. So this 45 cents is not new, it's just being gradually implemented. So it's not a new tax increase, it's what passed in April. We're not going to ask for your money before we need it.
Okay.
That's why it seems like there's more and more and more.
Maybe I
increase.
misunderstood. I thought he was asking for more even on top of that.
No.
That could be easily misinterpreted.
Right, yes.
You bet.
And that's, okay. Well, I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Sure, thank you. Yep. Any other comments? Anybody have any questions for Jason or any information presented? Okay. So.
We don't vote on that.
Any comments? We do. You need action,
do
Jason,
that
correct?
later.
Yes.
We have an agenda item.
Okay,
later
very
in
good.
New business.
Correct. That's what it's
Just
called.
the
Yes,
hearing.
right. Yep. Okay. So moving on down the agenda, reports and communications. Back to you, Dr. Lipscomb, superintendent update.
Yes. School starts Thursday, so we're excited about that. Some parents are excited, some parents are not. But we're excited about that. We had a great opening session this morning. We had a great speaker, and it was just a great morning. So the message this morning regarding building relationships and giving hope and connecting with all students, I think was very. I shared earlier tonight with someone that emails, phone calls, folks that have said something from our staff. I didn't want to exaggerate, but around 15 just through today, and I'm sure there's many others that have heard some comments. So very, very positive. So start off with a great morning. So with school starting Thursday, with our principals in our buildings, and they met and trying to, our teachers want to be in their classrooms, and we understand that. And we want to make sure that they have the time that they need to get ready for school, so we're excited about that. We'll be giving an update here. We have it as an agenda item regarding our boundary lines, and I'll give an update here as a specific agenda item as referenced earlier with some comments on that. So we're excited about that, excited about the school year. Progress is being made at Capital City High School and at Jefferson City High School with the renovations. We're asking folks to be patient, especially Jefferson City High School. Just with any time there's a renovation, we're asking folks to be patient. With that, it does take time, and there are some inconveniences, and we recognize that, and we're asking folks in the community to be patient. And anytime there's renovations, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, so we're asking folks to work with us today. We did have Mr. Floppy Guy, or the Flying J today, welcoming our folks today. So we were excited about that. If you see a 20-foot tall guy that's flapping up there with an air blower, I won't demonstrate any more than that. We were excited.
We are streaming.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Hi, folks. So anyway, had a great day, and we're excited about Thursday for school to start, and making sure that we give all of our students hope for better tomorrow. So that's all I have at this time.
Good update. Any questions for Larry? Very good, okay. Moving on, Chief of Learning update, Dr. Schindorf.
All right, thank you. Well, the information I want to share with you is very timely. I want to share some work that's happening around our mental health supports and behaviors. So timely because if you listened this morning to Brian Mendler, our speaker, he addressed this pretty extensively and with passion. And part of his message was that, you know, what we don't need is more rules and more policies and more paperwork. What we need to do is to reflect on adult behaviors and how we are responding and reacting and our timeliness. So I want to share with you a few things that actually Bridget Frank's been working on and what we believe will help support the message that Brian sent this morning, and that is that we need to take we still deal with a lot of student management issues in our buildings. I think we always will. Anytime you put hundreds or thousands of students in the same building, you're going to deal with some things. But what we want to do is make sure that we are treating our students fairly and that, as Brian said, we're using these as educational opportunities. So some of the work that's been happening, when we hired our behavior interventionists here a couple of years ago, we had a vision for using them to get into the buildings and to spend time supporting classroom teachers. And it kind of went in a different direction than what we intended, and what we found was that our behavior interventionists in the buildings were spending a lot of time being reactive. They were being called to the classrooms, dealing with kids who were having outbursts. And that wasn't the sole intent. It was part of it, but what we wanted was for our behavior interventionists to help support classroom teachers for getting into the room, working in the classroom, working with students, modeling for teachers, helping provide a support structure. And we just didn't see much of that happening. We still believe that that's the model that it's going to take. And if you listen to Brian today, that's what we need an all-in approach where everyone is willing to rethink the way that we are addressing our students. And so some of the work that's been happening is our principals and our behavior interventionists came together here just a couple weeks ago, and they started talking about ways that we can get back to our initial model of how do we support classroom teachers, as opposed to just being reactive and going and getting those kids who are having an outburst. How do we continue to work within the classroom and support these students, because we don't want kids gone and suspended and out for long periods of time. We want to, because we don't educate, we don't grow and get better if they're sitting at home. And so we believe that our model of getting into the classroom, supporting the teachers and the students is a much more effective model. And so the principals and behavior interventionists have a plan to re-implement that this year from where we intended. In addition to that, we've added some mental health and behavior supports. We've had a relationship with Pathways. Historically, they've provided us 2 therapists that have worked in the secondary schools. They've gone in and helped provide some mental health therapy to some of our students that need it. But 2 wasn't enough, and so they are going to be providing us 8 therapists. And those 8 therapists this year are going to be able to have time in every one of our elementary, middle, and high schools this year. So we're excited about that, because these are individuals who have the capacity to go in and not just counsel, but to go in and provide the therapy that these students wouldn't otherwise have for many reasons. Sometimes parents can't get them to the therapy, sometimes scheduling doesn't work, but now we have the capacity for our partnership to bring that therapy into the building and provide it right there in the school building when the students are with us. So we're excited about that. And that process will be as students are identified by school counselors. They then contact parents, they get parent permission to make sure it's okay to provide that therapy. They then evaluate those students and develop a plan for how they're going to provide those services. So we're excited about the added therapists this year. We've also expanded our JCAC Middle. I don't need to tell you that JCAC is a very successful program, both high school and middle school. Again, we don't believe that the best method is to have students removed from the mainstream and put into special programming, but we also know that when that happens at JCAC, we have very successful students. So we have expanded by 2 teachers in the JCAC Middle, which means we'll have more capacity for more middle school students with severe behaviors that need counseling and therapy, to get them out of the mainstream, get them into a smaller setting, and to work with them. So we're excited about those added resources. So 2 teachers and a counselor there. And then Bridget continues to work with our principals and our behavior interventionists and our counselors to assess and to improve on our multi-tiered system. So we have a system in place where when students begin to struggle in the building, that we begin the process of identifying them and referring them and assessing them and designing plans for them. Well, we know that that system, that support structure, isn't as efficient as it should be, and it's not as effective as it should be. And so about a week ago, she had some elementary and middle school folks around the table, and they're beginning to evaluate that process, and we hope to get more efficient and more effective in providing the services for our most needy students. So we're excited about this because we believe that what we're doing here is providing the support structure so our classroom teachers can do what they need to do. So we're excited about it. And then in your packets, there was some comments in there from Joe Martin about technology. You probably read in there that we had a little issue with I told you last month that the company was putting aside 10 devices for our classrooms at the high school on the 3rd floor, and they had those ready for us. Well, as all good plans do, it fell, and the company, for whatever reason, wasn't able to provide those 10 devices. So here's what they did, is they came back and said that because they had promised the 70-inch panels for those 10 rooms and they weren't able to produce them, that they are going to supply us a 75-inch panels at the same cost, no additional cost. And that's there is a very significant cost between 70 and 75-inch. Not only are they going to provide us those 10 panels at a reduced cost, that they've agreed to provide us all future panels at the reduced cost. And so we're very pleased to be saving a lot of money. So we're excited about it. We also, over the summer, Joe had these set up at Dix Road, and multiple high school folks came over. Some, he'll tell you, were a little reluctant, not too sure about it, but when they left, they were excited. They got a chance to play with it and see what they do, and just a lot of potential in those smart boards. We're excited about them. So, any questions about our behavior supports or technology? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Report, Dr. Schindler. Moving on to item C, Chief Financial Officer, Operations Officer report, Mr. Hoffman.
So I was gonna pass and
Okay.
on tax rates and school
Gotcha.
and subs.
You yield your time? Gotcha. Okay, very good. All right, moving on to future dates. We'll see the items A through G there. A couple of dates coming up pretty fast tomorrow morning. The prayer breakfast, what time is that?
What time is the prayer breakfast?
6:45.
6:45.
6:45 to 7:30. It's shortened up a little bit
Okay.
with folks that were having trouble getting to work. And out of respect for folks' time, 6:45 to 7:30 in the morning at Plum Park. So I invite folks to that.
Great. And if you haven't attended that one before, if you can tomorrow morning, it's a great event. Certainly a good number of community members come together at that space. So first day of school later this week, and also bring your attention to the staff and family barbecue coming up. Different location than it's been the last couple of years. Note that. Thorpe Gordon Playground. It's a little different. Coffee with Larry coming up pretty soon, and then the Foundation Gala, which is always a good evening. Certainly try to get out and support the foundation's good work around the district. On the old business boundary lines update. Prepared for that?
Absolutely. So just want to give you an update. I think I shared with you at the last, this is August, so the July board meeting, that we would bring a recommendation to you at the September meeting. We've had as an agenda items, gives folks an opportunity to discuss, give them an opportunity to ask questions, and so forth. So just to kind of start of an overall summary of why the boundary line discussions. When we asked the voters in April of 2017, when we had campaigned conversations, 107 community presentations, that we anticipated some tweaks to the boundary lines. We didn't anticipate wholesale changes, and one of the primary reasons is the location of Capital City High School is within Cedar Hill's boundary lines, and Cedar Hill feeds Lewis and Clark, which will be feeding Jeff City High School, and Thomas Jefferson Middle School will be feeding Capital City High School. So we anticipated some tweaks, and so we communicated that throughout the process, had a lot of discussions about that throughout the campaign. And so that's, as we move forward, we started in December With that, we started out with 5 goals. We started out actually with 3, with the number 1 of including trying to have the boundary lines to where the enrollment and the poverty rates would be very similar between the two. In 1993, when the community supported 2 middle schools, as in Thomas Jefferson, Lewis and Clark, as some still call the new middle schools, which was 25 years ago, but they still call them the new middle schools. But they want to keep the enrollment very similar between the two, and the poverty rates very similar between the two. And for the most part, they've held true. There's been variances, but as a general rule, they've been very similar. But with those 2 guiding factors determining the boundary lines, that is the reason why there are some folks that currently live closer to Thomas Jefferson Middle School that attend Cedar Hill, but then they go to middle school at Lewis and Clark. And the reason why, it was not just geographically a line down the middle of our district-wide map, and with LC and TJ in a line drawn down the middle. If they would have done that, because we looked at doing that now actually with Capital City High School and Jefferson City High School. If we drew a line right down the middle and split those, the enrollment, the poverty rates was going to be around 20% different between the two, and the enrollment was going to be around 350 kids different. So we said at the beginning we weren't going to have the haves and the have-nots. We wanted all of our students to have the same opportunities regardless of where they go to school. Some disagree. You may be here in the audience, you may be watching online, and you may have a differing opinion. There were some folks that said just draw the line, and if the poverty rate's different, if they don't like it, they can move. Or if one school is going to be a class 6 school or class 5 and another school class 3, so be it. Some folks felt that way or feel that way, and some feel that way very strongly. We respect that. We have empathy looking at it from your perspective. But as a school district and the Board of Education here, that we want all students have the same opportunity. So that has kind of guided this from the very beginning. Those 2 goals, as in the enrollment numbers being similar and the poverty rates being similar. 3 kind of came on and evolved through our meetings with the community and folks. One being that we had shared throughout the campaign that we anticipated some tweaks to the boundary lines because of the location of the school. We would like geographically where it's located to, if you lived right there, that you would attend that school versus sending you somewhere else. So that was something we communicated. So that was one of the goals, to include Capital City High School within TJ's boundary lines. That was one of the goals. Whether you can do it or not, that was one of the goals. So that was one of the goals. The similar enrollment numbers, the similar free and reduced percentages, and then 2 more that kind of came on through. As of tonight, we had it as an agenda item, was the 50th opportunity our community has had to communicate and learn and express their views with regards to the boundary lines. And what kind of came about through many of the meetings, and I've got the where we went, the dates, who we talked to, and so forth, was minimizing the number of students that were changing from where they are currently going. Okay, folks said to say that I'm going to change boundary lines, to try to minimize that, if possible, if we can. If folks have attended or planning on attending somewhere, they bought a house somewhere based on where they anticipated, we wanted to try to minimize that. Okay, whether we can do it or not, we wanted to try to do that. And the other part was to eliminate the splitting of elementary schools. Right now, if you live in Thorpe Gordon, it is split. Okay, right now you go through Thorpe Gordon 5th grade. Some of the students go to TJ, some of the students go to Lewis and Clark. It's been that way since '93, and some have said the Thorpe Gordon parents. We went and met with Thorpe Gordon Elementary School and their parents, and I think an overall view was that we don't really care about the boundary lines. Of course, they say that unless it didn't go like they wanted, but they cared more about keeping our students together, which we understand that and we respect that. Another thing that came out through the meetings was having a grace period. Okay, so if we're saying that this is going to take effect in the fall of 19, what type of grace period is there? If I attended, let's say Cedar Hill, we've talked about that, and I've attended through 3rd grade or through 4th grade, K through 4, and then I'm going to, you're going to change and make me change elementary schools if a boundary line was drawn and leave their classmates, etc., that would be very impactful. That's one of the reasons why the decision was made as far as the school district to have a phase-in approach at Capital City High School. As we've shared before, next fall, a year from now, freshmen and sophomore will be from Thomas Jefferson will be attending Capital City High School. The next year, fall of 20, we will move the 8th graders up and have a freshman, sophomore, and junior class. The next year, then we will have the fall of 21, 22, will then be with 4 classes, etc. So we did that because we didn't want kids that have gone K through 11 with their classmates. We draw a line in the sand and then say, now you got to go take pride in another school where we ask you to graduate from. Of the schools that we've talked to across the country, when they added a second school and then divided the lines, there was a lot of heartburn over that. And so to try to make the best transition, that's why we're doing the phase-in approach. So that kind of came out with our elementary folks as well. So that goal was added as a goal to try to not split any of our elementary schools if possible. So that kind of guided that throughout the process. So from that, process-wise, I went through trying to keep the goals at the forefront of that. We had a committee that we asked for their input, okay? And the goal of the committee that we asked of the committee at the very beginning, and I wrote it down, I went back to my notes here, vet the process from a neighborhood perspective and develop scenarios for consideration. Okay, we didn't ask the boundary committee to decide what the boundaries are. Okay, the Board of Education will do that here at the September meeting. Okay, we asked the committee to come up with some of the scenarios for the board to consider. Okay, now you can so who do you have on that committee? You can say, well, if I'm on there, well, I would say this or that. We asked for input. We had in the upper 80s of folks that wanted to be on there. Okay, well, that's a challenge trying to have folks. Are they on there for the right reasons? Or are they on there to take care of their property from that perspective? So we have 11 elementary schools. We wanted 3 from each elementary school, which would be 33 folks, okay? We read through every single one because we asked them to say, why do you want to be on there? Some were flat out and just said, I just care about my house. Well, guess what? We didn't choose those folks. There were some folks that maybe that was their motive, but they softened it up a little bit, at least acted like they felt something differently, okay? Our goal at the end of the day is regardless where you send kids, it's a quality education. And that's continual be our goal to become a premier school district. But we have empathy, we recognize there are neighborhood schools, there are schools with traditions, and my parents went there and that's where I want to go, and I bought a house because of this and that. We recognize all of that. So we want to work through that and have some empathy as we work through that. So when we met with the committee here in the last, we asked them, they had narrowed it down to 3 scenarios for consideration. Could the board choose something outside of that? Absolutely. The last committee meeting that we had, of 33 folks, we had 11 there. Okay? We had 11 that were involved in a lot of it. Now, folks have commitments and have things, we get that. So then we asked folks to submit online what they thought their choice would be and so forth. Not as in they are deciding where the boundary lines, because the Board of Education is doing that. They hear comments, you guys elect these folks to hear. Tonight is number 50. The September meeting will be number 51, to where from on radio, United Way, the Chamber, Realtors, Citywide PTO, Lions, Rotary, Young Professionals, Lawson, Thorpe, South, TJ, LC, Cedar Hill, those schools. We went and met with all the parents on those. Scheduled meetings from Boundary Board of Education. Tonight is number 25, where folks would have an opportunity. So that has been since December, and we're not including at Walmart or at church or one of your kids' ball games when folks aren't shy about giving their opinion about boundary lines. And we recognize that. You try to have empathy and you want to be a good listener. And we understand these things are important. So that's why we took a long time. So here it is August. We started this in December. So where we are in a month from now, I will be asking you guys to make a decision on that. So will it make everybody happy? It won't. And we recognize that. But you try to have empathy. You try to put yourselves and look at this from a big, big picture that years down the road you can look at. But things change. And as a school district, we have not looked at boundary lines on a regular basis because it's, as some would say, it's no fun. It's a very emotional topic. And we recognize that. But we took that challenge as we want to embrace. We say we're stronger together and make that a reality and have conversations and have meetings, even if they're difficult meetings. Troy, I'll call you whether it's difficult or not in the morning to set up a meeting. And we will do that. And we did that through the boundary process as well. And we will continue to do that because as this morning's speaker said, you grow when you go through challenges and when you go through speed bumps. Those are opportunities, and that's what we hope to do as a school district. So with that, with the committee at our last meeting, and I will just share this, we asked folks of the 3 scenarios, and the 3 scenarios are an A, B, and C. They're on our district website. I don't know if you want to bring those up here. This is open to the public. You can see, go to jcschools.us, and you can see the 3 options right now. Basically, excuse me, option A, B, and C. C is basically the simplest. It's keeping it the way it is right now, other than Thorpe Gordon Elementary School, have all of Thorpe Gordon go to LC instead of splitting them like we are. Option A and B is a little more complicated. Option A is basically, click on option A here. Go to the map. Let's back up, since we're going here. Go back, would you, just to the main web page. Let's go to our district map.
Our district map.
Please, or you can go to option, well, just go up to our district map. Go to the top and about us, or however you can get there. About us, there we go, go to district maps. Because we have some folks here that haven't maybe seen these. This is our school district map. So as you can see, so from Centertown, as we have some Centertown area over here, to Holt Summit, to right here as far as that Morrill Heights comes down here as far as the Osage River. Before you go to Lynn, this portion down here is part of Morrill Heights. Here's East Thorpe that we talked about, and this is the portion here, downtown area. That at this portion right here, the middle school lines that I'll show you in a second, you can kind of see the middle line there. This portion comes to TJ, and the rest of Thorpe comes here to Lewis and Clark. But our district-wide map, right here is the location of Capital City High School, and right here is Jeff City High School. So I touched on, we looked at drawing a line right down the middle, because some said, well, that makes sense. Well, we understand that. When we drew a line down the middle, we weren't going to have very similar schools. They're going to be very different. And that's why, does anybody live out here, is this Route B or Route C? C? If you live out here in Route C, yes, it is closer to TJ than it is to Lewis and Clark. But that was determined in 1993 of Cedar Hill to attend Lewis and Clark to keep the poverty rates and the enrollment numbers very similar. You may disagree with that, because I had folks saying, if you're going to redo boundary lines, you need to fix all these things that didn't make sense. We get it, but it was to try to keep very similar, and that's why the lines were drawn as is. So this is just our district-wide map. So let's go then to options A, B. Go back there if you would. So this here is a portion of Cedar Hill. Jason, do you have that tabbed up here, the map? You're a good man. So right here, this purple is Cedar Hill, and we're going to zoom in on this top portion of Cedar Hill. And Cedar Hill right now, here's kind of the district lines here that you can see right here in Cedar Hill goes to Lewis and Clark. So here's the top portion of that, and basically what it is taking, option A is taking this portion of Cedar Hill and moving that within South Elementary. South Elementary currently attends Thomas Jefferson. Cedar Hill currently attends Lewis and Clark. It would be taking this right here and the number of students. Brian, was that 37? 37 elementary kids here. One of the comments folks said as far as starting with their classmates. We get that. So having a grace period. So we're going to allow kids that started at Cedar Hill to finish at Cedar Hill, even if we change the boundary lines to have a grace period. Having younger siblings, that siblings would follow the same as their older brother or sister. When their older brother or sister then moves on to the next level, then that's when that grace period is over. Then they would have to attend where they live, but they can't apply for special permission. And that would be taken into consideration if they've gone there so forth years. So option A is basically Thorpe Gordon here, all of it going to LC, and then this top portion coming into South, which would then switch to Thomas Jefferson. It would make Cedar Hill a little bit smaller. That's option A. Okay, any question here as far as board-wise? Okay, option B is basically, Jason, I'll let you bring it up here. It's the same thing here, other than this doesn't go into effect until their middle school years. Okay, so we would then split Cedar Hill Elementary, which is one of our goals. We said we want to try to not split our elementary schools. We would basically be swapping. We've been splitting Thorpe. We would then be splitting Cedar Hill. And if you lived right here, you would continue at Cedar Hill. But once you got to the middle school age and high school age, you would then go to TJ and then Capital City High School, which would be right here. So would you bring that up, Jason, option B? Please. Okay, I guess it's the same math here, just as far as with those kids. So you guys have any questions on that? Okay, option C, would you bring that up? That is our current middle school boundary lines, and you kind of see it all kind of ties in. I maybe should have started with that. But this is our current middle school boundary lines. Blue right here is Lewis and Clark. The pinkish is Thomas Jefferson. And option C keeps this, other than right here Thorpe Gordon. Instead of this portion of Thorpe that currently comes to TJ, they would all go to LC. Right here's the location of Capital City High School, and if option C was chosen, then if you lived right there, you would not be going to school. If you lived right there, and you would be going to Jeff City High School, because that's currently in Lewis and Clark's boundary lines. Okay, so any questions on that? So we asked the committee, hey, what's your thoughts on this? Those who were in attendance chose option B. Those that then were not in attendance, and we sent to them an email in the form of a survey monkey, and they chose option C as far as not doing anything. The total with all of those, there was one more vote for option C. Okay, does that mean, well, they decided C, that's what it's, no, that's their view. We asked for them to look at scenarios to consider. Okay, we've had 50 community meetings that we've been taking input, and you have a committee meeting that some come to all of them and some do not. It's not right for them then to decide when they might not have all the angles. And for example, as we shared tonight with some folks that live in the area of the top part of Cedar Hill with regards to their community, saying if we live right here, can see the school, doesn't it make sense for us to go to that school? We get that. So that was something that was shared tonight. So those are all the different angles. I probably took 3 times longer than I should have. There's a lot of different parts to it. Do you guys have any questions for me on this?
Just to clarify, what was the committee's recommendation?
The committee didn't have a
We
recommendation.
don't have a recommendation yet.
Let me clarify. I asked the committee, I wanted them to give us scenarios for consideration. I didn't tell them to decide.
Okay.
Now, I did ask them, if the board asked me, what do you think? Those that weren't present said option B. Those who were not present that we sent them, there's not as much validity when you send to them as you send a survey monkey. You assume, but it's not 100% accurate because of just you don't know who's filling that out, okay? And they said option C by 1 over option B, okay? So you value their input. They had committee meetings and different meetings, but there has been for 7-8 months, a lot of discussions of taking all this into consideration. And some on the committee felt, hey, we'd like to maybe have another opportunity. We weren't familiar. I did share with the committee the petition that your guys' neighborhood had put together, along with 17 other feedback I was giving from 50 different meetings. And it wasn't quite as in, I don't want to say it wasn't registered, but it wasn't as in, well, wait a minute, they said what? Because now it's like, we might have voted differently. I didn't ever say that they get to decide what it is. You guys are going to decide, you value their input from that, but ask them to consider scenarios for consideration to bring to the vote.
I do have one question. So
Yeah, absolutely.
when were they asked simply to vote for one of the 3 options, or was there ever consideration of asking them to rank?
I believe they were in a rank as in a 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, and so did we score that in such a way that if they voted for, their first choice getting so many points, their second choice getting so many points, and their third choice getting a sliding scale, and look at, rather than just a single vote for this option, did we allow them to, like say, give some input into saying, this might be my preference, but if I had to rank the 3, did we take that collective value scoring?
Brenda, Ryan?
We just asked them to rank them 1, 2, and 3, but we did look at it in a couple of different ways. We did look at it, to a multi-voting thing, so that we could figure out whether or not they really, we just looked at the numbers of 1s we had, the numbers of 2s, and the numbers of 3s, just to get a sense of it. I don't have that data in front of me.
We didn't do it as
We didn't give them so many points. We didn't give them $10 to spend and ask them how many they would spend. No.
Yeah, because you can do different things and throw out outliers and take out the top 2 and the bottom 2 and then see what's left in the middle. You can do those on different things that I have.
No, I just was curious whether they were allowed to rank them 1, 2, and 3, or whether they were simply given a number one vote for for one single choice, and how that came back.
Could we have a report that shows that?
Yeah.
1, 2s, and 3s.
1, 2s,
Absolutely.
and 3s. How many
Yeah.
were 1s, how many were 2s, how many were 3s
Absolutely.
for each?
That would be helpful.
Thank
And then the only other observation I would make is that I would, if there is additional input that came to the committee, came from the community, being shared with us and with those people who have been on the committee, I would think we would value the committee's review of that and allow them to kind of say, okay, well, maybe that, I hadn't thought about that point. Maybe I haven't considered that. And that might change their perspective to some degree.
That's fair.
So as we approach a point where I understand we have to make a decision, that's our responsibility, that's what we get paid for, right? And so I would value, though, having the committee having as much information as they could,
Right.
as they give us,
Right.
kind of their final.
One little wrinkle on this was, and when we asked the committee to vet it from a neighborhood's perspective, develop scenarios to consider, when we had our meeting, we're gonna ask folks to give us their kind of rank, the orders, we had a third of them there, okay? And so it's the validity of that from a statistical standpoint, you're putting a lot of weight on some folks that, is that truly reflecting of the entire school district when you have 11 folks that may live in different areas?
We started with 80, right? And then narrowed those people down to 33.
We tried to get 3 from each.
You had 80 people that
Expressed
started that
interest.
request. Right.
Yeah, and just full disclosure, some didn't care a lick about doing the right thing, in my opinion, other than I want to take care of my house. And so that's, you try to,
Sure.
and I hope that doesn't offend folks, I'm just being honest. I mean, you're trying to, what is for the good of JCPS for the longevity, and that was the challenge. And there was some that, I think as far as with a couple board members, it wasn't just me, I mean, there was a group of 6 of us, I believe, with a couple board members, Steve and Lori, I believe were on that, trying to determine the folks on there of who would take it seriously, would also look objectively versus being influenced by maybe some other factors. Is that fair to say?
Yes, absolutely. I saw some of the comments too, and
I mean, if we could see that data that you guys collected, just like we did with like the naming committee, mascots and colors with the
Right.
comments,
Right.
so that we can read through that prior to
We don't have any
September.
comments, but we do have, and remember, we still have 11 people who never voted. So only 2/3 of the committee voted. What we have is median, average, and.
Average median, and then the number that shows which scenario is their first choice. So I can see that.
And I don't know, I would personally encourage us to maybe appeal one final time to the 11 members who maybe didn't vote for whatever reason. I mean, I'm not asking that we give them, 17 different times to, appeal to them, but, maybe more than one contact to say, vote on your, to express your opinion. I would think it'd be worthwhile maybe just, again, ask them one more time to weigh in on the decision.
I appreciate where you're coming from there. Larry, is that with the 11 members that voted, or Larry, Brendan, you all can address this, the 11 folks that voted that were there for the meeting when you asked them to, I shouldn't say vote, but rank order their preferences, is that reflective of the group that was primarily engaged in the process, that came to the meetings, or did we have some folks that were out of pocket that were usually there?
Yeah, that's yes. I think the 11 that were there and that chose option B, or that was their top choice, versus a couple of the others. We had 18 scheduled meetings, and those were either subcommittee meetings or actual committee meetings. And so just trying to truly getting input from the committee that's reflective upon all voices in the community,
Sure.
all segments, is the challenge, honestly. So,
On the other hand, Ken, I'd be a little concerned about approaching the 11 people who didn't vote, because then I would feel like they're not giving really a very educated vote.
That would be my concern as well.
You know,
Yeah.
that they're just voting because we asked them to vote, but maybe they weren't even at enough meetings to even
That's kind of our.
be
goal.
educated
If
in
they
the
weren't
way that they were
involved-
voting.
If they weren't involved in the process, or if they, and like Larry said at the start, we understand that sometimes conflicts come up, we certainly have those ourselves.
Yeah.
But if those 11 members were reflective of the folks that were engaged from the beginning to the end, and they're the ones that are educated the most about the issues and were engaged in the discussions, then I tend to value that opinion more so than somebody that said, yes, I'd like to serve, and then came to 2 committee meetings. Like I said, we understand people have conflicts, but out of 18 meetings, if you came to 2 or 3, I think that's more indicative of that you just weren't really engaged. So-
But they also have access to the same information that we do, right? So,
They should.
I mean, the information is available, so there's nothing, it's not like there was data or information that was made available to the committee that's not public, so they have access to all the information we do.
Right. But I think there's,
Yeah.
that's true, absolutely, I think that's correct. I think what you miss though is if you don't attend those committee meetings, then it's the discussion, the back and
Sure.
forth, and that didactic process where stuff
Sure.
bubbles up.
But we didn't
Because
put
they
up,
had access, doesn't mean they're gonna use the
yeah,
access.
we didn't do a summary of the Lawson meeting when we went and met with those parents, and then put a summary on the website. I mean, we gave an update at that, or Thorpe Gordon, or TJ, or LC, or the realtors, or the young professionals, or whatever, of all the different ones, when you ask for input and take questions and have dialogue, that's where
That's-
some of that is.
Okay.
Yeah. Rich, you had a question?
And maybe this is to Steve as much as anything. For the next board meeting, how do you anticipate that we would present it with the choices that will be given? Because the proclivity of me to be the X factor might choose a D.
Sure. Well, I would say that I think based on what Lorelei and Lindsay have asked for, is and we can get that information so you all can have that in advance of the next meeting, so you can see the rankings and the
Will we
numbers.
be constrained though to A, B, or C?
I don't think so. As far as my understanding is I mean, Larry is you have regularly said in public, and I believe I've echoed the same thing, is that ultimately the decision ends at this board table. And so if there is another option that is attractive to this group, and we would choose to do that, then of course that's our prerogative.
The reason I say that as much as anything is to ensure that those who have a voice need to
Yes.
express it.
Right. Or something that's maybe not even been discussed.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right.
Now, we did say we wanted to have a recommendation by tonight, so folks would have 1 year, okay? And if they're like, you know what, you guys, and if they so choose to do something, that's why. But we also said we'd rather do it right. I said to John Wooden, be quick, but don't hurry. So do it right, but time is of the essence as well. So we'd rather do it right, and it'd be September, October. They're like, well, we gotta get it done, just throw something. We're not gonna do that.
Well, and in order to be respectful of everybody, and not, I forget who said it up here, but, we don't want to go back to committee members, 4 more times and say, hey, would you please? That's right. They've done their time. We need to be respectful of that and say thank you for your service and let them go about other things. So rest assured, this will be on our September agenda as an action item. So.
But I would like to hear as a board member from individuals who are concerned about these issues, and my email is on the web, so let me know.
Right.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yes. And like I said earlier, you all can find that. It's under the Board of Education section of the district's website. Every one of us has contact information. You can reach Dr. Lincecum through Stappenfield here. So I don't think we can stress that enough. I mean, we are going to seek to take action on this next month, but we want the public's input. We want to hear from you. We want to get your thoughts on this matter so we can make the best decision possible, which we recognize is not going to make everybody happy. And we knew that going into the process, but we do need to make the best decision that we possibly can. And the only way that's going to happen is if folks let us know what's on their mind.
Will someone from the committee be here to represent the committee?
That's not been determined. If you'd like to have, as far as the
think
committee,
so.
I conveyed to them that we anticipate would like to have their input, but as far as a formal presentation, again, at the beginning, we just said we'd like scenarios, and that's where it was kind of narrowed to 3. Then, pros and cons and looking at those 3 scenarios versus we gave a proclamation to the committee. You guys are determining and making that final recommendation, because honestly, if all 33 of them would have been there, we could have done that, but when there was not that many, we felt that it was more important to not put that because the validity of that, honestly, that would truly reflect our community.
So Lindsay, to your point, I think it would be helpful to have one or two folks from the committee that represents, especially those 11 folks that were there at that last meeting, that would come and be available. So you can ask questions, or if we've got something that comes up in our discussion in September, they're available.
That'd be great, thank you.
And that was honestly 51 different meetings, community-wide, to gather input. So hopefully no one will say, well, I didn't know anything about it, unless their head's in the sand. I could have used a better choice of words than that.
Probably so,
Could've
but,
used worse.
but it's.
Yes, you could have.
That's true. Moving on.
New business, please.
Okay. Any additional questions for Larry? Any comment?
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you. Good report, good information. Moving on to new business. This one belongs to me, scheduling of the 18-19 Board of Education Executive Retreat. For most of you, you remember that we held a retreat last January upstairs here at the board office, and I've spoken to as many of you as I could get in touch with, and my understanding is that we all felt that the general feeling was that that was a beneficial experience. It was valuable. I know Lorelei, you can speak to that. Other organizations in the community utilize executive retreats to look at strategy going forward and kind of get a review of big picture ideas and things that may be on the horizon and how we want to address those, and kind of looking at how the district's going forward. Dr. Lincoln talked this morning, certainly not the first time, but she spoke this morning on our major J.C. Reed's initiative. And so
Happens to be there in the back.
that's exactly right. So my thought on this, unless anyone has any really strong preferences, which certainly speak up, but my thought on this would be is I think it would be advantageous for us to look at a date, say like in January, because then the staff will have some additional time under their belts for this school year, so they can speak maybe a little better to how some of those initiatives are going, and we can have a more informed discussion. Any thoughts on that? So if we could look at your January dates and see what your availability is.
It's the first I've heard of a retreat, so.
I have too. I've never heard anything about the retreat till right now.
Me either.
First time I've heard about this.
Me too.
So
Didn't you go
My-
last year?
we went last year, but I didn't know we were having one this year.
Oh,
Well, we talked last year about the fact that we'd like to try to make this on a regular basis, an annual thing, just because of the size of the district and the organization. And I think it's helpful for the board to have that and an opportunity to look at things from a strategic lens. I think, what did we do? Last year we did like a 5 p.m. to 9 p.m.
We didn't travel
evening.
anywhere. I mean, we didn't spend any.
No, we didn't. We went upstairs and used one of the
Retreat
rooms.
implies that somehow we're leaving. That's
Yeah.
Right. No,
That's not-
we
Don't have time for
retreated up
out-of-town
to the second
trips.
floor.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Scott, I didn't hear.
Work session.
Work session. We're not doing it overnight.
To pick a date now, or just be thinking about it before picking a date in the future?
I would prefer if we could look at a date and decide one now, so it doesn't get away from us, and that way it gives you all, Rich has got session, and some of you all travel, and we all recognize how quickly the calendar will fill up. Does anybody have a
Gotta
preference?
check duck season dates here real quick. It's important.
Did last year we have it on Thursday? Why don't we
So
look
look at a
I think
Thursday?
so.
Did last year?
I think that's what we.
I'm thinking let's look at 2 or 3 Thursdays, and maybe then you can communicate with Stephanie.
Thursdays are
Thursdays.
Okay, for availability, so
afternoon.
looking at 10th, 17th, or 24th of January, those 3 dates, how about? And then touch base with Stephanie and those as possibilities.
good. Getting into goose season, that's fine.
Yeah.
So,
Very good. Okay, so the 10th, 17th, or 24th, if you would communicate with Stephanie over the next couple of days, and then she'll send something out based on what works for the group. Okay, very good, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Moving forward, next item is the tax rate. Consider an approved tax rate for 2018.
Now, unless there are no further questions, I need a motion to approve the tax rate as presented in the hearing.
Any additional questions for Jason?
I will move to approve the tax rate as presented.
Thank you, Rich.
I'll second.
Thank you, Lindsay. Additional points, discussion? All right, all in favor of approving the tax rate as presented for 2018, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Very good. Tax rate's approved. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
Good work. Moving forward.
So the next item, I'm going to ask Coach Dennis Licklider to come and get us started in talking about selecting a scoreboard vendor. Coach Licklider was the acting interim athletic director last year and really led the process through last year. So I'd like Coach to come up and talk a little bit about the process.
Thanks for letting us talk about this. And by us, I'm including, you guys will stand, Aaron Earlywine, Robert Nesekia, Chad Reisner. The four of us probably carried most of the load on doing this thing. We involved a lot of other people in the process. Dr. Linthicum, Gary Verslois, Jason Hoffman, Bob Weber, Wes Schulte, John Moon, Joe Martin, and Brent Whelan from Nichols Technology. So with that being said, I want to go through this quickly. I'd like to spend a few minutes and just talk about the background of the scoreboard and then some goals we set for the process and the process itself that we went through. Background: the present scoreboard was purchased in the early 1990s, and we're talking about the football scoreboard at the stadium. It replaced a board that was functional, but long and short of it, we couldn't get parts to repair it. So if anything went wrong, we were out of luck. We're nearing that point with the present scoreboard. Because of the age of the board, there was very serious discussion when we built the stadium in 2008 about whether to get a new board at that time or to move, save that one and use it. We have made the decision. We made the decision then to move that one over, and here it is 10 years later. It was a good decision at that time. We feel another good decision is being made right now to replace it at a time when we've been able to shop and compare products rather than at a time when the scoreboard goes out and now we've got an emergency mode to replace it, most likely with an inferior product. We just got to get whatever we can get at that point in time. Our goals in the process: we felt like the age of the present board, the opportunity to host a state track meet for 5 more years, replacement of the turf at Atkins Stadium, opening of Capital City High School in 2019. Capital City High School will also play at Atkins Stadium for a few years, and this all made it reasonable to update the present static scoreboard with a state-of-the-art video board in 2019. We wanted to package the stadium scoreboard with other new gymnasium scoreboards and video boards that are needed at Capital City and Jeff City High Schools, and that provides the advantage to the district of a larger order for better pricing. We wanted, and this may be the most exciting part of the whole process, we wanted to integrate our technology curriculum with these boards throughout the district. And what does that mean? Well, first, make sure we've got the capability in the product that we buy to provide our students with the best opportunity to operate a first-rate, multifaceted system. Have the cameras, have the controllers to provide a professional experience for our students and for the audiences. Second, integrate that equipment into our technology program and allow our student to obtain real-world experience by developing the video content that we show on Friday night, that we show at our basketball games and volleyball games, and then also work those games to display. You have a script. When people buy advertising, how many times must their ad be shown for that game? Somebody's got to make sure that that's done, and that's a skill in and of itself. We wanted to include some portable scoreboards for use in various areas that we use for our contests throughout Jeff City. For example, rather than spend $30,000 to update a scoreboard at a field that we use 2 or 3 times a year, how about spending $8,000 on a portable scoreboard that we can use at several different venues and move from one venue to another throughout the week and throughout the year. These portable scoreboards are rechargeable, so you don't even have to have electricity. You can set them anywhere. You charge them up and then you can use them for the games and then recharge them before the next game. We want to be the best school district in Missouri. Then we've got to be the best in everything that we do. Let us then buy the best scoreboards available for our students and our patrons. I think it's significant that as we researched our options, Daktronics Scoreboard Company manufactured over 40 of the 95 largest scoreboards in the world. So they were head and shoulders the largest supplier. The other 45 of those, or 55, however many that be, of those top 95 were split between 15 or 18 different companies. The process, we talked to the two main vendors with a presence in Missouri, Daktronics and Nevco. We met several times with each to hear about their products, their graphics, their warranties, their service, and their marketing plans and installation. We visited Camden High School that had just put in a new Daktronics board, and we went to Harrisonville High School that had just installed a new Nevco board. This allowed us to view real boards in real situations and real settings. So we got to see their boards, their football boards on the football fields, and we got to go into the gymnasiums and see their video boards that they use in the gymnasiums in their gyms. We came back, met amongst ourselves to refine our specs for our new scoreboards. We took the two companies to the dungeon and put them on a rack so that we could get their best prices. After getting those prices and comparing them, it was apparent to our group that the best fit for Jeff City High School, or Jeff City Public Schools, was Daktronics. We wanted to be thorough, we wanted to be good stewards of our taxpayer dollars, and we wanted to get the best for our students. We believe that Daktronics gives us those things. I will pass this around. I hope it's all right. Pass this around. He'll have a better video than these. These are all my copy machine, my mimeograph machine. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
Don't go too far. I just have questions.
Fingers on.
Yep.
So these guys did a great job. So I'll show you a little bit about what's being proposed. So we asked for, Dennis said they put them on the rack and put out product specs of what they were looking for. So at Atkins Stadium was a new 18 by 32 LED video display. Also, what would be new would be a visitor scoreboard, which would go on the press box so that people sitting in the visitor bleachers would have something to look at instead of looking up over their head. A new speaker system with a digital audio mesh, basically meaning another video board covering the speaker system, and then the two 25-second clocks on each end. And then in the gymnasiums, as Dennis said, we need to buy new scoreboards in Jefferson City High School and Capital City High School, so now is the time to be purchasing those as well. So it would be a new LED video display board in each of the two high schools. We just put new static scoreboards in Jefferson City High School, so those don't need to be replaced. They're very new, but we do need one on each end at Capital City High School of the static scoreboards for basketball, volleyball, wrestling. Scores table with a position indicator, backboard lighting, and then we have new auxiliary gyms, so 2 auxiliary gym scoreboards at each high school, and installation and 5-year parts and warranty. So this is not exactly what it would look like, but what it could look like. And one of the things that Dennis didn't really talk about, and what helped me get on board, because I was a little skeptical of having something like this as well, being a good use of taxpayer dollars, you see the advertising. And one of the things that sets Daktronics apart from Nevco is part of their package. When you buy your product from Daktronics, they have a marketing specialist that works for them, that comes in and helps us put together a marketing plan and helps us sell advertising on this board. So the plan would be that all of the cost of the high school board plus the parts and labor, everything at Atkins Stadium would be paid for by advertising dollars. So you can have advertising here, these circle through, and they'll help us come up with a marketing plan, help us meet with people. And our plan is to, if we're approved tonight to move forward with Daktronics, start with that marketing plan right away. Next 3 months, sell ads, and if we sell enough ads to get what we've wanted here, then we'll come back to you and say, here's what we've sold in ads, here's what it's going to cost, everything, and ask you to approve the actual purchase at that time. Yes?
Jason, do you know, while this is a template for football, and obviously we're talking about football mainly, would this also have the ability to have a template for other sports that might be played?
Absolutely, and that's another point that In 2014, when the facility committee came to the board and said we need to have two separate high schools, the first thing they led with in the presentation is both schools need to use Adkins Stadium. Well, this can be transitioned, all those colors can turn blue, and this could be Capital City High School. So it can be used
So
for
it'll be
both.
co-branded.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So it'll have just a different screen. For that speaker screen at the top, we would have a Capital City logo, and this would be Capital City, and everything would
Or
be.
look different for a track meet or something else.
And absolutely.
So if you played soccer, if we lined Atkins and you played soccer, that bottom bar would be able to be adjusted to be appropriate for soccer.
So we have a couple folks from Daktronics, I'll just clarify, but yeah, we can make this look any way we want. For the most
Right,
part.
for track meet, we'd probably put the results across the top, but you could have all 8 lanes of, and all of the results would be.
Like my 2-minute 40 time.
2-minute 40 on the 40 yard?
On the 40, yeah. on the 40, yeah.
So in other words, the entire perimeter of that board that we're seeing is a digital screen.
Digital screen.
It can be manipulated to whatever.
It's the exact same board as Busch Stadium, so you envision how they change the look for every different event.
Okay.
Does the district, is this normal for the district to pick up a tab like this, or have the boosters paid for it in the past?
So like Dennis said, it was 1980
Uh-huh.
something when the last board was purchased. So you see the static ads that are here. These were
Right.
put in place to help pay for the turfing of the football field, and they were sold over a period of time, and they actually run out in 2020. We have 2 more seasons on these ads, so that's something we're going to have to work through, because we're going to also now sell ads that are going to be, we'll be able to put commercials that will run at different parts of games, and so this will be a much more attractive ad buy and much more expensive ad buy. So some districts have said, we don't want to go and market, we'll just pay for it. Actually, my high school just did that, which surprises me. But I know they've had good success. Did you say Sykeston?
Yeah, I mean, we've done boards like this at 40 high schools in the state of Missouri. And every one of them was paid for by advertising. And even Jackson High School, they paid for it with district money, but it's got ad panels and it's gonna be paid, it's gonna be making revenue, serious revenue over the next few years.
So we think we can sell advertising for more than the cost of the board, and it will actually help offset.
There's a possibility of.
Offset more.
But it wouldn't be appropriate for us to say we're going to pay for it with advertising, not knowing what that money might be tonight.
Well, that's why we're gonna go out and market it, and in the next 3 months, we will sell marketing, we'll sell ads, and come back to you and say, here's the amount of money that we've secured in ad sales over the next 5 years, here's the cost of the board that we're proposing, and show that to you. And if we don't sell enough ad space, we might have to shrink the board, we might have to go to lesser quality, take the screen off the speaker. I mean, there are different options that we can scale this back if we have to.
Will we do the same thing with the basketball at the Capital City High School, sell ads for that? I mean, I know we're not replacing the basketball, scoreboards, and wrestling in the current high school, but
Right, yeah, we will have ads, and I'm guessing it'll be a whole marketing plan. that
Right,
will
yeah,
go
the way that we do the marketing is we market the district. So basically, we go up to XYZ Bank and say, you're gonna get this ad panel, this commercial, at all, both.
volleyball,
gyms,
basketball,
every facility. It's a lot more economical than trying to sell them, here's the price for football, here's the price for the gym, here's the price, so we'll sell the
So then
district as a
when we
whole.
open a new school and we add scoreboards and a new football complex and whatever, what does that do? We don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
the basketball's tied in with it.
Okay, but football's not.
Yeah.
But we plan on, we want to raise enough money to pay for the football. We feel like the basketball should be paid for by the furniture, fixture, and equipment budget
Okay.
within the bond issue for both gymnasiums.
Okay.
Jason, are you asking for two different types of, one a service contract and then a contract for the purchase of a product?
So the proposal, I've asked for it to be all included together. We can have it back out and we can pay for the service annually if we want, but right now the price is all inclusive of 5-year parts and labor, full service. I mean, if we're gonna have something like this up and running with our students running it, we really don't want it going out on a Friday night or a Tuesday night for basketball. So having someone that'll come when we need them, I think is important.
And we'll be able to integrate the audiovisual club into the board.
And we have Brent Whelan on board to help. You know, one of the other selling points, and you know, Dennis mentioned they have 40 of the 90 largest, and but just within Missouri, Busch Stadium has it, Kauffman Stadium has it, Arrowhead Stadium, Faurot Field. So, and when we talked to the guy that runs the video board for the St. Louis Cardinals, he said if someone comes in with experience from a high school that has a Daktronic board, I'll hire them in a minute. That's just real world experience that they can't really get anywhere else. They can't really teach them. They've done it. So I think it's another advantage that Daktronics has, that it's a real advantage for our students.
So Dennis, you mentioned the portable boards that might be able to be used at other venues that are not outside. So what do those look like, and what are the?
They're just static boards.
Right, yeah, just a clock score period.
Something that we can use at the middle schools or other places.
And they,
8 feet long, 7 feet long.
Yeah, they're
Pretty basic, but
basic clock.
they recharge.
I was gonna say, they have a control-
We went up to Rockhurst and saw one that had a freshman game last year. They had something on the corner, did everything that you needed to do.
Okay.
And I thought, wow, what a great idea. You know, rather than spending $30,000, let's say at Thomas Jefferson, Lewis and Clark, we play 2 or 3 football games out there a year. And those boards have to be replaced. You can set that video board out there on Tuesday, and you can take it out to the softball game on Wednesday, and you can take it out to the soccer park on Thursday, and, you know, it's.
and it has the capability to display everything that we've seen on these main boards. And how many in the package? How many of the portable?
It's a static board. It
a
doesn't
static
have
board.
the video.
It doesn't have the video, it's just
No
a,
video.
No
It's
video,
just
but
a score.
static.
Yes,
Okay.
just your basic.
Okay. And how many of those are in the package that we're talking about? Just one?
We're probably going to buy those outside of the package. We need to get those now, I think.
But Jason, what you're asking for is that we present to the board that we purchase or contract with Daktronics.
We're going to go start, right.
You're asking specifically for
Vendor
for us to
selection.
approve the vendor selection. We're
That's
not
exactly.
purchasing anything this evening. You're going to come back to us in about
Okay.
90 days with some additional.
And we're probably going to move forward with the smaller scoreboards, those for middle school. That's not really part of this package. That's just something that through the athletic budget, they're probably going to, especially if you give us permission to move forward with Daktronics.
If we choose this vendor.
That
Okay.
it really makes sense for us to go ahead and get those so we can get to using them this year.
Okay.
So I just want to
Because
clarify.
it's $8,000
Yeah.
approximately.
So you're just asking us to
He's asking for
approve
vendor approval.
the
Vendor
vendor.
approved.
Give us
And
permission to
that's
move
it
forward
for
with
now,
Daktronics
and
right
then
now.
You'll come back later.
Because I just want to clarify.
Yep.
The boards at Capital City High School is coming out of the bond issue budget money.
And Jefferson City High School Gymnasium.
The extra
LE.
gymnasiums that were, right?
Well, so
I thought
we're-
you said we were keeping the current,
We are, but we're gonna add a video board
Okay.
here. So this
So
would
that's-
come out of FF&E. So
but the football one you're talking about,
All
that is
advertising.
not money that's budgeted because you are going to sell enough advertising to pay for that thing. So
and if we can't, we will scale it back to something that we can sell enough
I just want to
advertising
clarify,
for.
there's no budgeted money
That
for
is
that
correct.
thing that's coming out of the district funds.
That is
And
correct.
you'll come
And-
back to speak to us about that.
Right.
And there is no scoreboard for football at Capital City High School. Capital City and Jeff City High School are both using Atkins Stadium.
Right.
Okay.
But we're not using bond money to pay for that.
Not for Atkins Stadium.
Just want to clarify.
You
Thank
heard
you.
it here. Right. Scott, any thoughts?
what else you got?
That's it.
I'm comfortable going forward.
Okay.
Then make your motion.
Make that motion.
I move to approve the vendor as presented as Daktronics.
Thank you, Rich. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lorelei. Very good. No further discussion. All in favor of approving the vendor as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Very good.
Thanks, Jason.
Jason.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
I'm still up.
Item D.
So, we found that our fill rate on our substitutes fell off quite a bit in the last year. And so we started looking at what is our compensation that we pay our subs compared to other districts in the area. And we haven't increased substitute pay for quite a while. And as we looked, we're still fairly competitive. We're not really low, but we're not really high either. Last year, so the budget for sub services this year, we've budgeted exactly the same amount that we budgeted for last year. And at the end of the year, we came in under our budget. And so we feel like in order to help improve our substitute fill rate, to get better subs, to get people interested in subbing more, we really need to have the best sub rate in the area. So our recommendation, it's on page 40 in your packet. We would like to, let's see if I can get there.
75 to 85 for regular subs.
So that's what,
When we did the research, we found that when we have a long-term sub, this is way more than competitive. It's way more than other schools do. But when you have an extended service, if we can have a really good person in there for a long time, we think that's a good value. So, but we, compared to other districts, we're above market here, but we'd like to increase what we're paying for substitute teachers, what we pay for retired JCPS teachers that substitute for us, and then also our clerical and para. And if you approve this, when we do a budget amendment in October, we'll have to increase our budget by $31,000.
We're still paying the subs through Kelly Services, right?
Correct. And Kelly agreed to reduce their markup by 1% on all these.
Okay. That was gonna be my question.
Do you think this is enough incentive to get more people to do this, or is it another thing that it has nothing to do with salary?
So I think what hurt us in our fill rate this last year is the legislation that passed that restricted Kelly Services employees to the same 550-hour rule that regular retirees get. So prior to this year, if you were a retiree and you worked for us, you were restricted to 550 hours. But if you worked for Kelly Services, you could sub as many days as you wanted. And so they changed that law and said if you work for a third party and it's a position that requires a certificate, you're restricted to the same rules that a covered employer would have. So we lost a lot of our retirees that could sub more. So we'd like to give this a try, and Kelly Services, Shelby works with them directly, and they think this will help a lot. They're excited. They think it will help. So this will give us the top sub rate in the area.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Laura.
Second.
Thank you, Laura. Any question? You said we hadn't adjusted for quite some time. How often are we looking at the rates?
We look at it pretty regularly. I mean, we're still, I think Columbia's at 80, and I think Blair Oaks is raising theirs to 75. Fulton raised theirs as they passed their levy. They raised theirs as part of their levy issue.
Just for discussion purposes, when was the last time that we contracted with Kelly and went through a bidding process?
I think this is our 5th year with them. Fourth or 5th year. I'd have to go back and look.
So then that's likely coming up for rebid pretty soon.
There's really one other company in Missouri, PenMac, that does this.
Okay.
So is that a current contract in place that has a end date on it, or?
I don't know that it really has an end date, but we can certainly reevaluate.
Which, not that I don't mean to imply that we need to, I just,
Sure.
for application, I don't know, I didn't remember.
Right.
It's when the Affordable Care Act went into effect, because for insurance purposes, we couldn't pay them anymore, or they were gonna be subject to our insurance.
Well, and it was dual factor that we had the advantage of our retirees could work.
Yeah.
And we would, I mean, if you have a retired teacher that's willing to sub, I mean, what a great asset that is.
Yes, sure, absolutely. And it speaks well, I'm glad that we're in the position that we're in. I mean, it speaks well that, you know, we say often that we recognize the biggest variable, in charge of whether kids learn or not is the quality of the teacher that's in the classroom. And so I think this shows that we're trying to do the best we can to make a commitment that when, teachers do have lives and they have, doctor's appointments and vacation and, other time they're allowed to be, away from work like the rest of us. And so when they are, then we're trying to get the best person to be in there on a temporary basis. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any other comments or discussion? Good. All right, all in favor of approving the substitute compensation plan as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Thank you. Thanks, Jason. All right. Item 8, I think this one usually belongs to Lorelei.
Motion to suspend open to enter into closed meeting by roll call vote pursuant to chapter 610.021 of the revised statutes of Missouri, section 13, individually identifiable personnel records, performance ratings, or records pertaining to employees, and 14 records which are protected from disclosure by law.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ken. Do that by roll call. Stephanie, when you're ready?
Yes.
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 Lori? Ken?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. We'll take a 10-minute recess. We'll be back down here. So just be respectful of everybody's time. We will start in 10 minutes.